Zach, let me tell you a story.
All right, I'm good to go.
Okay, all right. Uh, Zach, I want to start off today by telling you about my grandmother. Okay, so her name was Mary Ann. She died a few years ago, but she lived to be 83 years old. She was a pulmonary nurse, worked for Kaiser Permanente for like 30 years. She was a very strong, independent woman. Her and my grandfather got divorced, and then she just kind of like did her own thing and was just super independent. She was a I was trying to figure out if I could figure it out exactly. It was either three times or four times, but I think she was a four-time breast cancer survivor, and she was originally diagnosed back in the 90s, back when it was kind of like right on the verge of being like a death sentence to get any type of cancer, but we were just starting to figure out how to treat cancers really well. So she got good treatment. She was a nurse, so she knew to recognize it early, and was really good about getting her um, mammogram appointments, and got it diagnosed early, so she was able to get treatment early. And then she kind of had this really long period of her life where she lived for like 30 years as a breast cancer survivor. Um, and just shy of that, more like 20, 25 years. That's still a really long time. And ultimately, it did come back that fifth time, and that's what took her from us. But she was an amazing woman. That's just kind of a shout out to my grandma Mary Ann. But the reason that I want to talk about her today is because one of the things that she also suffered from was dementia. So that's the topic that we're going to start off with. So starting off strong with this comedy podcast, dead grandmas, cancer, and dementia. So we're
Yeah,
giving
I've been
ourselves a lot to work
struggling to
with
throw
here.
a joke in here, my man. I mean, your grandma sounds like a wonderful, strong woman, but comedically speaking, she's really busted my chops right off the. I
Right.
imagine her spirit is looking over me, being like, "Oh, make a joke about that, asshole."
I think we can add some pathos in some moments of levity as well. But yeah, but she was a very strong woman. I love her. I love her. I miss her. I was super sad when she was gone. But this is kind of my connection to the topic. She had dementia. I also have a professional connection to dementia too, because my PhD, and we're in my Alzheimer's Association shirt today. And my PhD topic was on genetics of Alzheimer's disease, specifically a subtype of Alzheimer's disease. It's the most common subtype of Alzheimer's disease. So I have a personal connection to the subject of dementia. I have a professional connection to the subject of dementia, and that's what I want to talk about today. My grandmother had a non-specific type of dementia, and we'll talk about the different types in a second. But hers was pretty non-specific. She had primarily memory issues. She did also have some motor issues, and she had some other conditions too that were kind of complicating the diagnosis a little bit, and that kind of added on to her condition. But she didn't have like a specific type of dementia. But I think that's like a good jumping off point into talking about what are the different types of dementia, because I think a lot of times when people talk about dementia, they a lot of them just kind of get lumped together,
Yeah, I will
and people
say,
just
as a
yeah.
layman,
Hmm.
I didn't know there were other types of dementia. I
Yeah.
assumed my understanding of dementia from pop culture and media and everything in the news is really just like old people are confused,
Hmm.
they can't find things, and then they wander loose in the streets. That's kind of my understanding of dementia as a concept.
Yeah.
So it's good to know
Yeah.
there's more specific ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, it's funny because because at the level of the cell, and when we're talking about like the biology of dementia, we actually do understand quite a bit about what makes different dementias separate from each other. But if you're talking about the actual like clinical the clinical presentation of dementia diagnosis, like what you're describing is actually not that far off from what the actual really kind of like umbrella concept is. So dementia itself is just this umbrella term that describes a bunch of different neurological conditions. And there's kind of four main types that we'll talk about today. But this is an umbrella term that is really describing just kind of mostly elderly patients, right? So that is like the elderly part of it. It is mostly old people that are affected by it. Some younger people are affected by it, and early onset dementias are tend to be particularly aggressive, and they're particularly tragic. But it's mostly older people that are getting affected by it. So that is actually kind of part of it, and it's really a condition that's defined by a loss of brain function. And normally there's like some regional component of it. So the different regions of your brain handle different tasks within your brain. I don't know if you know about that of brain function.
No, I use very little of my brain, so I find I haven't had need to know of brain function.
Right. Yeah.
So I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, yeah. So the different regions of your brain handle different tasks effectively. And when we're talking about the brain, what I'm talking about here is really just the topmost portion of it. It's the big pink wrinkly bit. If you think about a brain, most of the time what people envision in their head is just one specific region of the brain, and it's called the neocortex. It's particularly large in humans, and it's particularly advanced in humans. This is the region of the brain that kind of gives us our cognitive abilities. But there's
So it's not
different
that advanced in all
regions.
humans, but
There's some
I can
there's some
name a
variation
couple.
in the population, right? Yeah. But yeah, so there's like in the back of your brain, there's your visual cortex, right? So if you get hit in the back of the brain really hard and you see stars, part of the reason that you see stars is because it's literally impacting the vision centers of your brain. So your the visual processing in your brain kind of like glitches out for a second and it either goes black or you see things, right? And bright flashes and pops of light. And that's because your brain literally got hit in the part of your brain that processes vision. The same thing can happen actually if you get hit in the front of your brain. You can see stars because your brain will literally like slot forward and then it slams into the backside of your skull, and then you can get issues with like your even if you get hit on the front of your brain, you can get issues where you can see stars because the backside of your brain is kind of ping-ponging back and forth inside of your skull. Super fun. But
Yes.
there's the different regions of your brain handle different tasks and different functions, right? So it's not just that your whole brain is your whole brain does work together, but there's specific regions in your brain that handle specific cognitive tasks. Okay. And what happens in dementia types is that you actually get different regions tend to be affected first. And those are where the symptoms show up at. And that ends up being really important for telling the different types of dementias apart from each other.
So like
So,
when if
yeah, go
somebody
ahead.
has like they're starting to develop dementia and they're getting like a brain scan, do you
Yeah.
see like do you see like certain areas aren't lighting up?
Uh-huh.
Are there holes in there? And I'm picturing this as
Yeah.
like this is an Osmosis Jones scenario. Like, is there a club in your brain that's
Yeah.
just gone out of business
Right.
and
Yeah.
no amount of pills and white
Uh-huh.
blood cells can turn it back on? You know what I mean? Is that the
Yeah,
vibe?
yeah, that is kind of it. Yeah. So like if you look at a normal brain and then you compare if you were to take like a MRI or some kind of functional brain scan of a normal brain and then compare that to a brain with somebody with dementia, that's one of the ways that you can diagnose different types of dementia because you can actually see in some cases you can see atrophy of specific regions of the brain. So the most common type of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. And this is what, when people talk about dementia, a lot of times they're really just talking about Alzheimer's disease. Or if they have a family member or know somebody that has a type of dementia, they think that it's Alzheimer's disease when it might actually be a different type of dementia. And that's somewhat understandable because it's about 65% of dementia patients have Alzheimer's disease. And Alzheimer's disease affects primarily at first, it affects your temporal lobes, which is kind of right on the sides, right underneath your temps, right underneath your temps on the sides,
Yeah.
right? So that's why they call it the temporal lobe because it's under the temporal bone on your skull, and that region is very critical to memory formation. So Alzheimer's patients have memory issues, right? So that's how that works, is that it
Am I
affects that
under
region first. Yeah.
that? So that concerns me because Professor X, when he is reading minds, he puts his hand to
Uh-huh.
the temple. Does
Right.
that now? Okay, sorry. I just remembered the movie Logan exists, so this has
Yeah.
been covered before. Never mind.
Yeah, that was actually a really fun part. I mean, fun, it's hard to dementias are tragic, right? But that was yeah, that was actually a really interesting insert and plot point into Logan was that Professor X had Alzheimer's disease. Spoilers for anybody that hasn't seen it. It's not very far into the movie yet, but
Yeah, it's like scene two.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, it
it's
comes up
not
really
that much of
early,
a spoiler.
right? Yeah, but so Alzheimer's disease, it affects your temporal lobes, and that's why you get memory issues. It also affects your hippocampus, and those two regions coordinate with each other to work together on memory formation and memory recall. So that's why you get memory issues when you have Alzheimer's disease. Um, my grandmother, she had memory issues, and it was like I said, it was a non-specific form of dementia. So she may have had Alzheimer's with like overlapping other types as well. But the memory issues is kind of the hallmark characteristic of specifically Alzheimer's disease. Not all dementias have this same memory issue. I mean, eventually they all kind of start to develop memory issues, but that's the hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. Okay.
I will say
So
I do appreciate that they call it non-specific dementia as opposed to what they used to call it, which was loosey-goosey dementia.
yeah,
Where
yeah,
it's like, whoa, your
yeah,
dementia's all over the place, my man. Cheese and crackers,
yeah,
lock this
yeah.
thing down.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's yeah. That is funny that you mentioned that too, because there are some types of dementia that really like your behavior is kind of dysregulated and you do get kind of like behavioral changes or you end up getting kind of like loosey-goosey a little bit behaviorally. And one of those types of dementia is it's kind of all the way down at the bottom of the list, but is frontotemporal dementia, FTD. So that's like 5 to 10% of people. And one of the most common types of FTD is a behavioral variant where you do kind of get a little loosey-goosey, and you might get behavioral changes. And that's because when we were talking about different regions that get affected, it affects your frontal lobes. So it's frontotemporal. Also affects your temporal lobes, but it affects your frontal lobes. And oftentimes the first symptoms that people with a behavioral variant of FTD present with and that people notice is behavioral changes or personality changes, right? So again, my grandmother didn't have FTD, but she had some behavioral changes as well when she was really when I was really young and she was a younger woman. I loved her, but she was a very stern woman. She kind of scared me and my brother quite a bit.
mhm,
She was very intimidating. She was very stern. She was very strict. She loved us, of course, but she kind of, quite frankly, scared me a little bit when I was very young.
mhm,
But then when she developed dementia, she kind of like the one of the first signs that I saw of her changing in like her behavior and her personality changing was she stopped being this kind of like stern, strict woman and very stoic woman, and she turned into like a Zen master. She just kind of like that's what I used to describe her as. Like she was just so calm and just like loose and go with the flow. Very different from the way that she was before she had dementia. And she used to just tell me, like, Ryan, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. I just think that things happen and you just kind of got to go with the flow. And that was a very different change from the way that she was beforehand. But that kind of thing can happen, especially with FTD. There's a behavioral variant specifically of that. There's also a language variant of FTD where it affects the language centers of your brain. So there's parts of your brain that specifically affect your ability to produce language, to speak, and your ability to understand other people. This is called the language variant or logopenic variant version of FTD. And that can happen as well. And those tend to be different conditions. So like in some people they have this behavioral change first, and then some people they kind of lose their ability to be able to speak and understand people. Uh, a good example of this recently in popular news is Bruce Willis. So Bruce Willis was diagnosed a couple of years ago with aphasia. They just called it aphasia at first, but once they started describing his symptoms, I think a lot of us in neuroscience and clinicians kind of immediately picked up that like that's probably language variant FTD, and their family has come out now and said that he has FTD since then. But yeah, but it affects your ability to be able to speak and understand the spoken word when other people are speaking to you. Um, Uh, yeah, so there's that. One of the things that typically happens with FTD, though, as a condition, is that your memory oftentimes is quite preserved until later on, which is a little bit of a mixed blessing. You can have pretty wide changes in how somebody is and acts as a person, but at least they can remember things. So sometimes it varies patient to patient, but oftentimes their memory is preserved until pretty far into development of the condition.
Is there a specific variant that just gets me to forget all the times I embarrass myself pretty regularly, or is science still working on that?
Science is still working on that. I think that's the eternal sunshine of a spotless mind condition, right? Like that's
Yes,
the
a
you gotta
hundred
be able to.
percent.
Uh-huh.
So I can literally just make the exact same mistake over and
Yeah,
over and
right.
over.
Yeah, just
Uh,
just pick that one thing and just pull out that one memory, and then you
yeah,
can redo it again and rebuild
or
that
you could
memory.
just yeah, you could have the exact same shitty relationship with Jim Carrey over and over and over.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So then there's two other types of dementia that are like the most common types of dementia. So the next one that I'm going to talk about is called vascular dementia. This is really just a result of kind of like microbleeds or strokes or TIAs, transient ischemic attacks. This is a result of bleeding in your brain, and that kind of slowly over the course of years and decades can just kind of kill off neurons. At this kind of like punctuated phase. So a lot of times with vascular dementia, people are kind of like stable at a specific amount of brain function, and then they'll have another stroke or something like that, and then their brain function will kind of like drop a little bit off of a cliff, and then they'll be at a stable phase. Then they'll have more bleeding sometime later, so they kind of have this like stair stepper thing. So these are the different kinds of ways that like a clinician, a neurologist, or a gerontologist, somebody who's a doctor who's seeing these people in the clinic might be able to figure out the different forms of it. And then the last type of dementia that I'm going to mention is called Lewy body disease, which again, in like popular media, that was the type of dementia that Robin Williams was diagnosed with, right? Uh, and that one, it's about 5 to 10% of dementia patients have Lewy body disease. Um, Memory, again, is oftentimes quite preserved in this condition until relatively late into the disease, but they can have some motor issues, kind of like Parkinson's disease, where they have lost ability to be able to move around with ease, but it's also marked by really intense hallucinations, which was something that I think it sounds like Robin Williams was particularly scared of. And again, these people's memory is intact oftentimes at the beginning of it. So Lewy body disease is particularly tragic because a lot of times these people they know they kind of know that something's wrong. They maybe don't know what it is at first, but they start having like some really distressing symptoms that they know are not real, but are very scary and very intense, right? So those are kind of like the four main types of dementia.
So
Um,
now, just
yeah,
so I think we should have mentioned this up top. Now that we have described those types of dementia, we're going to ask you as listeners to figure out which sitting congressperson or senator is currently suffering from those, and how
right,
many more decades they will stay in office
right,
after that.
yeah,
So
uh-huh,
fill out the
yeah,
form online, guys, and you can win a
hmm,
prize.
yeah, that's right. It's like a congressional bingo card. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay. And it's funny that you mentioned that because the next thing that I want to talk about is that these conditions are fatal conditions, right? So their dimensions are a little weird because it's not like if you have congestive heart failure, you die of a heart attack or you die of pneumonia or something like that. Maybe that's not the best example because you do a lot of people that have congestive heart failure do end up dying of pneumonia. But like if you have a heart condition, normally you die because your heart stops working or something connected to your heart, like your lungs stop working. Um, and if you have a certain type of cancer or something like that, oftentimes they die because it affects a specific organ that is necessary, or it spreads to an organ that is necessary, and then they die of that. With dementia, though, it is kind of a weird thing to say, like, do you die of dementia? And yeah, some people do die kind of purely of dementia, where it progresses to the point that their brain kind of shuts down. It's kind of rare, though. Most of the time, people that have dementia actually die of pneumonia, and that's just because it's a complication where people eventually develop difficulties with swallowing liquids and food and stuff like that. And sometimes they can aspirate food or liquids into their lungs, and then they end up getting a lung infection. And that's ultimately what they die of. And that's the most common cause of death, like actual proximal cause of death of people with dementia. But like their their likelihood of like falling down stairs and stuff like that kind of skyrockets just because they start having motor issues and they get lost and confused easy. Getting into like car accidents is really bad if somebody has dementia and they're still driving their car. It can be quite hazardous. So that's why a lot of families have to have a big conversation of like when do you take the keys from grandma or grandpa or something like that, right? So you kind of have to look at what's called all-cause mortality in order to really be able to see what is the actual like effect of dementia on patients and how likely it is to for them to be caused to die. But like
So
if I remember off the top of my head, if you have an Alzheimer's diagnosis, your chance of dying year over year jumps to like 12% or something like that. So every year that you have Alzheimer's disease, you've got like a 12% chance of dying of something else, right? A fall or a scare or it's some kind of secondary infection or something like that. Whereas at like the baseline, if you didn't have dementia, your odds of dying would be like 1 or 2% if you're at that same age group, right? So it's like it's that like big gap in between the two is like that is the death rate of Alzheimer's disease, right? And it's the same with all the other dementias too. So that's kind of like overall. And I wanted to throw in like one more quick thing about like a statistic about it, which is a little bit alarming, right? So I wanted to look into how likely are people to develop dementia over the course of their lifetime. And if you have dementia, there was a study that just came out in Nature Neuroscience just last year that said that for people over the age of 55, if you live to 55, then you have a 42% chance of developing dementia at some point over the rest of your life, right? So it's becoming more common partly because people are diagnosing it more, like we talked about with autism last time, but it's also becoming more common just because we're living longer and we're persisting into older ages. And we're getting a lot better at treating things like heart diseases and cancers and stuff like that. So people are not dying of those things the way that they used to. And they're surviving those conditions for longer. And it basically leads us to be more and more vulnerable to live in these ages where we are vulnerable to developing dementia. So more people are getting it every year, and that trend is likely to continue. And as of right now, we don't really have any good treatments for these conditions. So there's that, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the heavy part. And again, not funny, and not great news, but but there is a silver lining here, which is that we have been studying these conditions to death for over 100 years is when we first started diagnosing dementia conditions, and Alzheimer's
And
disease was first diagnosed over 100 years ago.
yeah, and at those times it was just one guy with like one of those big circular mirror things on his head,
Hmm.
and he's like, "You've got cracker brain, you've got noodle mind."
Yeah,
Yes, and his only solution was like smacking you in the face with a hammer
yeah,
or putting leeches in your ears and just trying to scoop out the bad part of your brain. You know what I
yeah,
mean? That's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's
Yeah, it's rich, man. There's over a century of failed efforts to try to treat all kinds of dementias, and there's basically been no movement whatsoever. But just in
I've
the
given
last
this
like
patient mercury, as much mercury as he could ingest. I think he'll be cured by morn.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's yeah, but you know what? It's funny that you mentioned that actually because one of the things that used to be considered, I mean, it is still a dementia, but syphilis, right? So syphilis, a little bit of a tangent, I know.
Mm-hmm.
So syphilis is in the end stages of syphilis, you develop syphilitic encephalitis, which looks like dementia, and and it was studied as a dementia originally, and people tried to treat that and had very little success with that. But then somebody ended up coming up. I'm totally blanking on their name, but I was just reading about this a couple of weeks ago because I had forgotten about it. But there was this there was this there was this researcher who was looking at malaria and how people that get malaria, they end up getting this massive fever, and then it ends up kind of more or less clearing out their malaria, and the ones that survive the fever are the ones that kind of survive malaria. And he was like, let's see if that will work for syphilis. So he used like malaria toxins, I think, or he used like a deactivated form of malaria in order to induce a fever in syphilis patients that had the syphilitic encephalitis, that had this dementia, syphilis dementia, and then it cured them. And that was kind of the first and only dementia that was like actually treatable and curable, like
Yeah.
like in biology. The guy won a Nobel Prize for that. So like anyway,
When
that's
they
like a yeah. So
when they figured out the difference between just syphilis and dementia, I imagine like a doctor opens up the lab test and he pulls off his glasses and he's like, "This man doesn't have dementia. He actually just fucks." And then everyone slow applauded him and put
yeah,
him on his shoulders. The man with the
that's
syphilis, not the not the doctor.
uh,
Um, I watched a video today on YouTube about a guy who got two different forms of syphilis and HIV in Seattle,
oh
like in
wow.
2022, and it
Uh-huh.
was like a super disease. I didn't want to know about all that, but I do now.
And, yeah, it's there's never been a better time in life to be in a monogamous relationship, I think.
Yeah, it's a great time
Yeah.
for new super diseases to form. So
Right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that is a little bit of a tangent, but there is actually like a really weird nebulous link to syphilis and dementias that I wanted to mention because it's a pretty fun story anyway. But yeah, so there is a little bit of a silver lining in all of this. So like we've got all this time where we've been studying these conditions, haven't really made any meaningful progress on being able to treat them, but just in the last couple of years, we have come up with some new medications that are a blood infusion of what's called a monoclonal antibody. And this is a relatively new technology, but you'll start seeing this. There's more than a handful of conditions that are treated with this technology, but it's a new thing that's starting to come around, and it's really exciting in the neurodegeneration and neurological diseases space that people are starting to look at. And there's two treatments so far that past clinical trials and have some effect. And it's a small effect. So it's I don't want to make big bold claims. I think the people that make the drug will make bigger and bolder claims than I will about it. But it's something. We're starting to get a little bit of a foothold. So it's probably too late for anybody who currently has a condition, a diagnosis for any of these conditions. It's maybe too late for people that are going to develop these dementias in the next like 10 years, but maybe in like 20 years these will be developed well enough that they'll actually be kind of a viable treatment. So by the time, the thing that I tell people is that, by the time I am old enough to be able to get dementia, then a lot of these treatments are kind of on track to be useful for kind of like our age and younger. If these things take a while, but there is a silver lining, which is that we're starting to get somewhat of a foothold. Yeah, and it's still going to be a long haul, but there's some hope for the future that we might be able to treat these things a little bit more effectively than now, which is right now they're just treated as a chronic fatal condition that the best we can do is just kind of manage some of the symptoms and really not even a lot of those. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's that. It's
And
a little bit of a
I
downer.
looked up and I could see the spirit of your grandma being like, "Don't make a joke."
Yeah.
But she was really zen about it, which I appreciated.
Well, yeah, she probably would be. Yeah. So okay, so there's that. Part of the reason that I picked dementia is because one of the things that we decided that we were going to do, and this is going to be the rest of the episode, is that some science positive and some science skepticism podcasts that are out there that I'm a fan of have this tradition of doing annual predictions. And this really kind of comes out of pushing back on, there's like psychics and kooks out there that say that they can predict the future and stuff like that, kind of in the vein of like Nostradamus, right? But like they will predict the future, and these like psychics and quacks will go out there and they'll make a bunch of predictions every single year. They'll make like 50 predictions, and like one of them will come true, and they'll be like, see, I can predict the future. So one of the things that people in the rational skepticism field have started doing in their various media is making their own predictions. And I wanted to make some predictions with you. So we both prepared some predictions.
Mhm.
Do you mind if I go first? Because my
No,
first one
please
kind of ties
do.
into this. Okay, so my first prediction is Donald Trump, the president of the United States, he's going to die this year. That's my prediction. I
Mhm.
think he's going to die. And I think he's going to die because I think he has dementia. And I'm not the only one. I sent you a meme on Instagram of some other people who are actual clinicians who work directly with patients who have come to the same conclusion. By and large, I do kind of try to get out of diagnosing people because I'm not a doctor anyway. I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't try to diagnose public officials. But I think it's so obvious that he has dementia and that he's getting treatment for dementia, and he has a family history of dementia that I think he's got advanced, maybe frontotemporal dementia is kind of what I'm hearing, and what I think kind of lines up the best with the very public and obvious symptoms that you can see. And I don't think it's new. I think he's had it for a long time. And I think he's reaching like the end stages of the disease. So that's my prediction. Prediction number one, I
Yeah.
think Donald Trump is going to die.
That actually ties into my first projection, which is Donald Trump will die and he will be replaced with an AI chatbot, and the transition will be seamless. We won't know the difference because it will also just make up stuff when it doesn't have a
Uh-huh.
real answer. It'll go on long,
Yeah.
stupid tangents that aren't related to anything that you asked it about.
Yeah.
It's also well versed in hate. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, for some reason, the economy will approve. I don't know why, but the economy will approve under the AI Trump chatbot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all that it has to do is just keep posting on Twitter and Truth Social, and then it's like it'd be pretty cohesive experience for basically everybody, right?
And
Yeah.
like as far as like the video generation stuff, we could generate some pretty reasonable. He just stands there kind of
Uh-huh.
weirdly half bent over all the
Right.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know.
He stands there weirdly half bent over all the time, and that is a symptom of frontotemporal dementia. That stance of being kind of like cocked over at the hip is bent over at the hip and looking like you're going to kind of like fall over like that. He's been doing that since his first administration, and that is something that a lot of people have pointed out that that is a common symptom and a common thing that you see people with frontotemporal dementia have.
Yeah, so I'm now worried about some of my favorite dancers might have frontal tempora dementia.
Yeah.
Jamiroquai maybe in that one music video has it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and so he's got a family history of dementia. His dad had Alzheimer's disease. A loss of coordination is a common symptom of dementia. He has problems with standing kind of awkwardly, and there's lots of video of him in the last year or so trying to walk in a straight line down a red carpet, and he's kind of like weaving all over the place, right? He uh, he was signing he was signing the law into place. I'm forgetting the name of the law, but the law that reopened the government last week. When he was signing that, you could see from the way that he was signing it that when he got to Trump, he signed TRUMMMMMMMMM, and he had like 10 M's in his signature, and this is a signature. And one of the reason that some people are suggesting for that is that the signature is something that he's done tens of thousands of times probably over the course of his life. It should be muscle memory. But one of the things that happens sometimes in frontotemporal dementia, and this is something that comes from frontal lobe function, is that you can have this symptom called perseveration, where you get stuck on doing a single thing over and over again. So it might kind of look like a nervous tick, but it's just kind of like a repeated motion that your brain just kind of gets locked into and it can't let go, and it just keeps on going over and over and over and over and over again, right? And that's what he did
Wow.
there.
If
Yeah.
only there was some sort of device a president could use to sign their name on a document where they don't have to
Uh-huh.
physically do it themselves. If
Right.
only we had such a
Yeah.
tool and it
I know.
wasn't a big deal to use.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And it was also used commonly by every single president,
Every
including Donald
president.
Trump, all the way back to Eisenhower. Yeah.
Yeah, if only such a thing existed.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's some of the other evidence, right? So he's got a lot of well-known outbursts. He's been kind of well known for a long time for having emotional and behavioral outbursts. But they seem to be getting more common, and he seems to be doing a lot more things that are things that he probably wouldn't even have done during his first term, even though he was already well known for kind of emotional outbursts, right? And those seem to be getting worse. He is quite old, right? He is the oldest president that we've ever elected now. This is something that I always think is kind of a trip, right? So okay, so he is 79 right now. Uh, do you know how old George Bush is? George Bush Jr.,
Oh, George
George W.
W. George
George W.
W.
Bush. Yeah,
I'm gonna guess personality
he was.
wise 26.
Uh-huh.
Physically I'm gonna say 63.
Yeah, he's 79. He
Is he
was he
really?
They're the same age. They're the same age.
Okay,
Uh
that's
Donald
crazy.
yeah, Donald Trump was born in June. George Bush was born in July. Donald Trump is a month older than George Bush, George W. Yeah.
The I guess young because I didn't want to look like a fool, and then I think I made the
Right.
wrong decision. I look more like a fool. But I will say that does lead credence to my belief that a cold Coors Light will sort of pickle you from the inside and keep you alive. Because
Yeah.
Trump doesn't drink, and George
Right.
W. Bush had enough for all of us.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So this is another one. There's another one. What about Bill Clinton? How old is Bill Clinton? Do you know how old he is?
I
He
think
was
he's
he was
like,
president before George Bush, and George Bush was president over 20 years ago now.
isn't he like 82? Isn't he older than them?
That's really close. He is also 79.
Jesus Christ. It was a
He was
good
born
year for presidents, I gotta say.
he was born in August. So Trump was born in June, Bush was born in July, and Clinton was born in August in the same year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Joe Biden, do you know how old he is?
Uh, Personality wise, 115.
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess he's the same age.
yeah, it's a pretty good guess. He is actually a few years older. He's 83. So he was the only reason that Donald Trump is the oldest president that we've ever elected is because Joe Biden wasn't elected again, right? Yeah. What about Obama? How old do you
uh,
think Barack Obama is?
Barack, I'm gonna say 63. That's my year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really good. He's 64. Yeah,
Oh
you're only a
yeah.
year off. That was really good. Those were really good guesses. You were only off by a couple of years with all of them. But yeah, I,
The
I
thing.
always think that's crazy that Donald Trump, George W., and Bill Clinton were all born like not just in the same year, like within a month of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Almost like we should stop electing people from that year.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like they're
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
too old to do this now. I don't know. Call me
Yeah.
crazy.
Uh-huh. I mean, Bush and Clinton both had made remarks that they were kind of like, too old and ready for retirement when they left. And then we waited 20 years and then elected people that were the same age as them. Yeah. So, that's I just think that that's always interesting every time that I am reminded of that. But yeah, so that's my prediction number one. Yeah. Do you have any other predictions? Do you want me to go?
Oh no, go ahead. I feel like back and forth is good.
Okay. All right. So my second prediction, I think the AI bubble is going to burst this year. Like I think we're in an economic bubble. I think it's driven by the AI big tech companies, right? So like the Magnificent Seven, right? Uh, Google, Nvidia's in there now. Meta, what else? Tesla ends up being in there. Sure they count. They're like one of the biggest companies that's in there,
Uh-huh.
right? But like,
Yeah,
yeah,
uh-huh.
but yeah, like Microsoft, right? Like all of those companies, they're all big AI companies, and I think it's all a bubble. I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I was actually talking to a new friend of mine out here who I met out here who is a I won't mention his name and I won't specifically say what he does because I don't want to out him, but like he is a AI programming director. Like he runs a program for a major company, not one of these companies, but a major company, and he is the head of their like project management for AI software development. And he also thinks that it's all smoke and mirrors and that it's all going to kind of burst sometime in the next couple of months or years or something like that. So not necessarily like a big. I'm not the only person who's predicting that, but I think the AI bubble is going to burst this year. It's going to suck.
Yeah.
It's going
No, it's gonna destroy our economy if that
no,
happens.
it's not gonna be good.
If
Um,
you ever see those
yeah.
charts of how the money is being funneled from just one
Hmm.
company to the next company to back to the
Yeah.
first company, it's
Right.
not good. It's
No,
really
no.
bad. See, this brings me to my second prediction, which is the economy, the AI bubble won't burst this year because there's so much money in it, but they will invite us to a party, and it'll be a very uncomfortable party, like when a relationship is dead and they're like fighting in front of you, and we're all going to
Uh,
be at this big collective party in the Hamptons, I assume, and it's just going to be them and a chat bot and being like, I don't know, I don't know where you put the silverware. That's not really my job. And then we're all like, oh,
right.
okay, cool, that's yeah,
Right. Yeah.
all right, yeah, that'll be fun. Do
Yeah.
you guys
They're
want
gonna
to
be
play
like, where are
Cards
the
Against
croutons?
Humanity?
We're
Yeah.
gonna get the croutons. I got the pesto. Yeah. Right.
It's like,
Uh-huh.
I bought
Yeah.
500
Totally.
cases of pesto. And it's like, why'd you do that, chatbot? Nobody asked you to do that.
Uh-huh.
So that'll be good and unhealthy.
Okay, so my last so I've got this prediction and then I've got kind of one like moonshot predictions. But these first three I think I actually feel pretty confident are going to happen this year. And then the last one is just kind of like a wild prediction that like if I get it, holy moly. But my next prediction number three, there was this company at the Consumer Electronics Show called Donut Labs. Do you watch this space at all? Do you pay attention to the Consumer Electronics Show conference every year?
I'll watch the occasional like YouTuber being like, I went there and I saw this and this and this, and like
Right.
sometimes it's paid products and sometimes
Hmm.
it's like, stuff that person seemed genuinely interested in, but not I'm
Right.
not like super well versed at it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and for people that don't know who are listening, it's this big conference that's put on by basically just like tech companies that are releasing a new product or service, and it's just a marketing conference so that people can go and they can talk about their company's new whatever product or service. But a lot of really exciting new technology and services get announced at the Consumer Electronics Show every year. This year, there was a company called Donut Labs that said that they're releasing a new battery. This is kind of dry for people that aren't paying attention to it, but I think battery technology is really interesting. It's not in my scientific wheelhouse, but it's just kind of a like a passing interest that I have. And this company said that they have this new battery technology that just kind of does like everything all at once, and it would be a revelation and just kind of do everything that you would ever hope that a battery can do, and then some. And a lot of times like the reason so okay so they came out with this prediction. I'll kind of tell you about some of the things that they claim that their battery can do in a second, but I think we're going to find out that this battery is a fake, that it was fraud, and that they just went to the Consumer Electronics Show and just lied about this battery that they don't actually have, and it's all fake, and it's just going to come crashing down. And I that's my last prediction, is that I think this battery is fake. And it got a lot of play in the popular media. So after the Consumer Electronics Show ended last week or the week before or whatever, there was a lot of like popular science tech media articles that were produced at a lot of the big, you know, newspaper and news websites all over the interwebs. People were kind of breathlessly going like, "Oh my God, can you believe these new batteries?" They they said that it was not a lithium ion. I think they said that it was a sodium ion battery. So it's not lithium ion. It's based on like a new type of chemistry. And they're not the only ones that have sodium ion battery technology. That's actually kind of a really exciting space right now. But they said that their battery can charge completely from 0% to fully charged in like 5 minutes. They said that it can work all the way down to like negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that, which is something that lithium ion batteries struggle with working in really low temperature conditions. So it worked really well for like cars and stuff like that. That's a problem that electric vehicles have right now. If they're in like Montana or like basically anywhere in Canada, if it's a really cold day, then the battery literally has less power available to it. So the range is shorter. And if it gets cold enough, lithium ion batteries will basically just stop working entirely. So it's got this incredibly fast charge time. It can work at this incredible range of temperatures. They say that it has as much range as the leading lithium ion batteries out there, which is a limitation of sodium ion batteries. Sodium ion batteries typically have less of like they can hold less of a charge than lithium ion batteries for right now. I think there's like a theoretical limit where they could be basically neck and neck, but sodium batteries that exist right now on the market have much smaller capacity. But they say that theirs holds just as much of a charge as lithium ion batteries. They say that it's lighter than lithium ion batteries, so you could basically have like twice as many of these batteries within a single car as you could lithium ion batteries. What else? They made so many different claims. And like kind of the thing about it is that every single one of those claims is like physically possible, right? Like nobody who any of the scientists who study battery technology, none of them are like, oh, that claim is impossible because that's physically impossible. But every single one of their claims is like, first of all, it's like 10 years ahead of development of every single other battery research company on the entire planet. And people are pumping billions of dollars into battery technology right now, right? Like this is what our entire power grid is going to be based off of in the future once we remove ourselves from fossil fuels, whenever that happens eventually.
When we
So
run out.
batteries, exactly. When we run out, our only choice is electricity. Then we'll finally decarbonify. And but
Yeah.
yeah, but like so like all of their claims are basically just like like exactly as much as you could possibly claim without somebody who really knows battery technology being like, I call bullshit. There's no way that's not physically possible for a battery to do that. But they just do it for like every single aspect of a battery, and they don't have a patent. They don't have a working battery. Like they said, well, they say that they do, but they didn't bring it to the show because like they didn't want somebody to steal it and like, you know, steal their technology. They didn't publish any like white papers or anything about that, describing anything whatsoever about how their battery works. So they basically showed up to Consumer Electronics Show, said like this is like a dream list of like all of the things that you could possibly want in a battery. And hey, guess what? Our battery does all of these things. No, you can't see the battery. No, we don't have one with us. No, we don't have a
Yes.
patent, right? Like, but a lot of people just kind of heard their claims and were just like, "Oh my God, this is incredible! Can you believe it?" And to me, no, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I have to say it does so far have all of the hallmarks of my favorite type of tech scams.
Hmm.
And most of my favorite scams, and especially tech scams, are, oh yeah, it does everything.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it does everything. Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure. It's like they're waiting for
Exactly.
you to ask them a question and be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, does it run for 2,000 hours?" Yeah, it does
Hmm.
that. It's
It
like,
does.
"Oh, can you charge it in 2 seconds?" Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
hey, if I use it, will I get a little kiss from daddy? Of course it will. It'll make your daddy love you again, and your kids will respect you as a man. That's what
Yeah.
this battery does. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, cool. Can I see it? Can we get any information to verify it's true?
Uh,
No.
no.
F you. Why would you ask me such a thing? We just need to raise. Listen, we have a perfect working device that would revolutionize society. We just need $100 million in investment to make more of them. And suspiciously, we won't be able to make any more of them like tomorrow. We'll
Mhm.
have to make more of them after a second or third round of funding.
Right. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
this reminds me a bit of Edison Motors. I think it's Edison, but I'm pretty sure it was Edison. There was a company that was like, "Hey, we made this electric truck.
Hmm.
We made this like electric diesel truck, whatever, and it was revolutionary." And they were like, "Here's a video of it driving down the road." And
Uh-huh.
it turns out they took a truck that didn't have a motor in it, put it at the top of a hill, and just let it coast down. And
I
that
know
was
exactly what
it.
you're talking about. Yeah, I remember that story. Yeah, it is exactly like that. And you have no idea how on the head you hit this nail. Like they're owned by a billionaire who has like some connections to like making tractor equipment for farms and stuff like that. So he has billions of dollars and he has connections to manufacture these kinds of technology. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They were there at Consumer Electronics Show looking for investment partners so that they could make the factory to make the batteries. That's exactly what they
Yes.
were doing. You
And
nailed it.
also, one of my other favorite parts of tech scams is that
Uh,
it always comes from a person who, if you just looked at their resume, couldn't do the thing you just said.
yeah.
Like Elizabeth Holmes is like, I've invented a
Hmm.
device that you
Yeah.
can get one drop of blood and you can do all these blood tests. And it's like,
Yeah.
but you don't understand how those tests work. So how'd
Yeah.
you invent this? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like if I was like, I invented the most revolutionary motor in the history of F1, they'd be
Right.
like, but you did an open mic 2 months ago. So do you have the skill to do
Uh,
that? I don't think
yeah.
so.
Yeah. And that was exactly the comparison that I was going to make too. I think that this is exactly
You
like
were also going to
Elizabeth
come for my
Holmes.
comedy career?
No. I was going to talk about Elizabeth Holmes too because it reminds me so much of Theranos, the company that she ran. That was all a fraud and it was all smoke and mirrors. Because like obviously this guy is like a billionaire with connections to manufacturing, so like he has some bona fides where like she literally was just kind of like she I think she went to school at Harvard but only for like 3 semesters or something like that, and then she dropped out and was like, oh, I'm gonna revolutionize lab testing.
To be fair, she also watched Silence of the Lambs and took on a Buffalo Bill voice to sound more professional.
Right,
So let's
right.
not forget about that.
Yeah, yeah, in important parts. Yeah, she also wore like a turtleneck so that she could look like Steve Jobs. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But like the thing about the technology that they were talking about is that like it was not a unique idea. I remember when I first heard, I was still an undergrad, I think, at the time, but I remember when I first heard about the idea of Theranos, the company, and the technology that they were purporting, because like what they said that they were developing was like it's exactly like this, where like it's technically possible. Like you could create some kind of lab on a chip device that could take maybe not a drop, but like a very small amount of blood, and you could test for like 20 or 30 or 50 things at the same time. And if you could mass produce that, you could do it very, very, very cheaply. Whether or not you could do it with the same amount of accuracy as what she was claiming, I think is very dubious, but you could get a very, very cheap lab on a chip type of technology, which is technology that exists now, and people were working on it at the time. Like it wasn't her idea. She was an undergrad who heard that there were people that were looking at this, at creating this technology, and she was like, okay, instead of getting a biology degree, I'm just going to drop out and I'm just going to open up a company that does this thing that people say that they might be able to make in 10, 15, 20 years. And then because what she did was such a big, massive fraud, it like put a chill on that technology. And I feel like we're like 10 or 15 years behind on funding because all of a sudden like that became like an area that like people don't want to work in because it was associated with Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos, right? And I think that this battery technology, the claims that they're making is very similar because it's like plausible, but just not right now. And it's physically possible, maybe, but like nobody knows how to do it. So it's going to take 10, 15, 20 years of more research and development to get to the point that we can have batteries like this, just like it was going to take 10, 15, 20, 30 years before you could have a diagnostic test like what Elizabeth Holmes was offering in like 2010 or whatever, you know? So I
Yeah.
actually think it's really similar in that regard. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it's and the thing that gets me about every tech scam like this is that people who are not billionaires, people who are not
Hmm.
millionaires, we're not in any industry where in which we would have like access to the funding or doing any of the funding or whatever. We can smell bullshit immediately. But for some
Yeah.
reason, rich people are like who like could literally just hire somebody to be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, heads up,
Hmm.
this is bullshit. This is
Yeah.
obvious bullshit.
Right.
We need to see X, Y, and Z before we even consider giving them $1."
Right.
They don't do that. They're
Yeah.
just like, "Oh, I lost 75 million on this.
Uh-huh.
I guess my people at my company aren't going to get Christmas bonuses. Not that I've given those for 10 years,
Right.
but like I'm just going to do this again." They keep
Yeah.
doing this.
Hmm.
It's crazy to watch
Yeah.
rich people make the identical mistake over and
Over
over
and
and
over.
over.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
then
think consulting fees, they could instead of putting like $20 million into this Donut Labs technology, they could just call me up and be like, hey, for a much cheaper price, do you think that this is legit or not? And I'd be like, no, it's bullshit. Give me my money,
yeah,
please. And they would
give me
save so much money.
give me $75 an hour and
Right.
I will and you can hire me for one total hour and I'd be
Hmm.
like, "Here's the vibe I got off of this product.
Right.
Sounds stupid and made up." And like you could go to any expert in the world on this subject and ask them, "Hey, do we have a thing? Are we like pretty close to having a thing that could do this or this or this or this?" And if they don't say yes to all of them, we
Hmm.
don't have a new product that can do all of it.
Right.
We don't
Yeah.
have one product.
Yeah.
It's also a hallmark of medical scams too.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
every medical product that comes out does everything.
Yeah.
It's like, "Hey, remember when like coconut water was supposed to not only hydrate you best but give you all the vitamins, and
Right.
also it helped with like alopecia, and also it helped and you're just like, "No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't do that,
No.
because
It tastes
nothing
good and
just
it gives me
does all of
water.
that."
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives me, yeah, it's good water. It tastes pretty
Uh,
good.
it's tasty
And
water.
sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes I'm like, I could go for regular water without coconut flavor. But they do that
Right.
every time as a scam. I think
Yeah.
that's the easiest way to pick a scam is,
For
does
sure.
it do everything? And
Yeah.
if it does, it doesn't
Yeah.
work. That's
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because like these guys, like it would have been more believable if they would have picked like two or three of these things. It still would have been like,
Yes,
wow, revolutionary. But they're like
100%.
the whole menu, the entire thing, right? And like to give you an idea about like how wild of a claim this is to me is that like Samsung, one of the biggest corporations on the entire planet, they are also one of the world's foremost battery technology developers, and they are spending tens of billions of dollars on research and development on new battery technology every single year, and they have individual teams that are working on every single one of these aspects, but not any one of those teams can do all of them, right? But this small lab, I can't remember, they're based out of like Netherlands or something like that, but they're kind of like a pan-European conglomerate now. It's like a bunch of European companies that have kind of bought and sold each other and are invested in each other. And there's some technology there that so like Donut Labs is the name of the company that was bought by the billionaire farmer tech guy. And like he had some technology and he's like partnered with his brother's company who manufactures motorcycles, and then they bought this Donut Labs company, and then it sounds like they're like it's complicated. That's like there's extra complications there, and it sounds like they may have something on some of these claims, but even the ones that they have a little bit of an angle on, they can't do as well as was claimed at CES. And then they went ahead and said like everything else anyway, like they like it
Yeah.
sounds it sounds like they have like maybe one or two of the technologies from multiple companies that are owned that they can now kind of link up like, oh, now we can do like structural batteries and we can do sodium ion batteries. But then they were just like, oh, but also all the things, right? Like all the
Yeah.
things too. We can also do all of those things as well. Yeah. So yeah. So that's my third
Oh,
like prediction. Yeah.
yeah. My third prediction is that Donut Lab is going to make $1 trillion this year, and I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna be furious at it.
Yeah.
It's gonna make so
Uh-huh.
much money, and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
and at some point I'm gonna have a conversation with a former NFT guy, and he's gonna be like, "Oh man, this battery's gonna change the world. This battery's gonna change
Yeah.
everything in society," and I'm gonna
Yeah.
be like, "We've done this. We do
Hmm.
this every year. You come to me and you say this is gonna change the world. It was NFTs. It was crypto. It was AI. It's this battery. It was Theranos." Side note on Theranos, and I looked it up once. Some dude in LA put out
Uh-huh.
a bunch of billboards of himself
Okay.
and Elizabeth Holmes, and it was called The Innovators or something. And it's like, come to this
Okay.
website. I
Mhm.
proved that she was right. And it's
Okay.
like some
No,
insane man.
no.
These billboards were up for like a year, and they were
Wow.
all over LA. Like he spent a
Really
lot of money on this, and
wild.
like it's literally him on a website being like, "No, I personally figured out that she was right and she should be freed from jail." And
Cool.
I was like, why do crazy people have so much money? It's like you hear about
Yeah,
an
right.
auction and it's like
Uh-huh.
somebody bought like the bones of Fred Astaire for
Yeah,
$2.5 billion, and you're like, how'd you get
right.
the money?
Yeah, yeah. There is actually like another update that I didn't mention, but she got married when she was in prison
As you
and
do.
had a baby. And her current husband is actually in the process of starting a new biotech company. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally blanking on what it is, but it sounds very much like the same kind of like smoke and mirrors thing, I think, the last time that I looked into it. I'm completely blanking on like what the company is and like what it is, but it sounds also like they're purposely trying to avoid mentioning the fact that this guy that is running the company is married to Elizabeth Holmes because
Yeah.
because they know that investors don't want to hear her name attached to it. But yeah, so that's still a thing apparently. She's about to get out of prison and or is already out of prison. I don't know. The whole thing is like
I
the whole thing is weird, and the fact that they're like immediately going into like a new thing and be like, and now here's the thing. It's like I had a lot of
yeah.
time while I was in prison to think about new technologies.
To process new technology. You know,
Uh-huh.
prison's kind of the best place to learn about technology, I found.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I, I, I wish if I could change one thing about the world, this wouldn't be it, but it'd be up there high, which is that I wish smart people were as good at fundraising as con artists are.
Yeah,
Con artists are incredible at it.
yeah.
Uh, our society's built around con artists who are just good at making money, and
Mhm.
like smart people are like, hey, I think I've created a pill that is not addictive and cancels all pain, and I just need to research and to grow this, and everyone's like, boo, f you, go to hell. This guy
Mhm.
in a seersucker suit who's like all gold teeth, that's who I want to give $1 billion to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
Elon Musk is
So
Iron Man. Sorry, go on.
yeah, yeah. So that's my regular predictions. I actually felt pretty confident in those three that like one of those three is going to come true this year at least. I felt pretty good about all of them actually. I have one more prediction. This one's a moonshot prediction. This is like it would be wild if it came true, but it would be so exciting. Beetlejuice, the not the movie, not the movie starring Michael Keaton.
The
I
guy who
do.
was on Howard Stern.
Oh, I forgot about him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Betelgeuse the star. Do you know about Betelgeuse the star? Are you aware of
I've
this?
heard of it, but I don't know anything about
Mhm.
it.
So it's the shoulder of Orion, of the constellation Orion. It is a red supergiant, and it is acting weird according to astronomers and astrophysicists. It's acting weird in a way that suggests that it might be nearing the end of its life. And what happens when a red supergiant star nears the end of its life is that it goes supernova. It will explode in a massive stellar explosion. And we are at the exact right distance to see it and be safe from it. So I am predicting that Betelgeuse is going to go supernova this year, and if it happens, it is going to be wild. It has been like 700 years, I think, since a human was able to see a supernova from Earth, because that was the last time that a star went supernova in like in a close enough range that you could see it with the naked eye. Um, but but previous reports talk about it as if it's like a new star or a new moon. Like this thing will be visible during the daytime if it goes supernova. It will be as bright as like the moon is.
Yeah.
And
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 700 years ago, they just thought, like, oh, someone did too much blasphemy today. Uh, Now we kind of know what it might be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like it's at like the exact right distance to be able to put on like a major show, and it would be not like a once in a lifetime or once in a generation thing, right? It would be like a once in millennia stellar show that basically everybody would be able to see, even if it was like on the day side of our ability to see it. So,
How long would this like happen? Like
yeah,
how long of
I
an
th
event would this be?
Yeah, I think it would be like days to weeks. Like I think you would be able to see it not just for like if you it wouldn't be like a solar eclipse where like if you're not outside at within a minute or two of the event that you completely miss it. My understanding is that it would be at least a few days and it may linger on for weeks. And long term you would be able to see it through a telescope because the supernovas that we've seen that were like visible to the naked eye in the past, if you have a telescope now, like you can't see the supernova anymore because the explosion has kind of died down. But if you have a telescope, you can look at the place where those supernovas occurred hundreds of years ago, and now you can see what's called a nebula, right? So there's like a stellar remnant, and it's this big ball of gas that gets like blown up. And there's some of the most spectacular like telescope images that you can see. So if you Google image search nebula, a lot of those are like former supernovas. So even after it was done, if you have a telescope, you would be able to look at Betelgeuse and you would be able to see like this stellar remnant that would look like this amazing view from Earth. But
Okay.
my understanding is that we would be able to see it with our eyes, with our naked eyes, for like days at a time, at least, maybe weeks.
Question for you:
Uh-huh.
if it happens to go supernova this year, how long ago did it actually go supernova, and
Oh,
then we just saw it?
yeah, that's a good question. I don't I want to say that it's a couple dozen light years away from us.
Okay, I thought it was a
So
lot further away. Yeah.
yeah, but it's whatever
While
the
you're
number.
looking it up,
Yeah,
I can give my prediction. I can give a
let's hear it.
prediction. I got one more prediction, which is
Yeah.
this year we will get definitive proof of extraterrestrial existence, like living
Mm,
creatures. They're not necessarily humanoid, they're not like space aliens visiting us, but we will get some proof on like I think it's Saturn's moon, or I think it's Saturn's moon that has like the moon that's like could be living creatures could live there. I can't remember, it's Saturn or Jupiter. I think we'll find some evidence of living creatures, but we will be too stressed out to care. We
yeah.
will be so stressed out and upset. We'll be like, okay, fine.
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah.
it's like when they confirmed Area 51, and we were all like, yep,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
good for
Yeah,
you,
that's
I
a
guess.
pretty good one. That could happen at any point, I think. One of the episodes that I think I'm gonna have to do is uh like the subject of alien life and like how likely is it and like cover the Drake equation and talk about how likely is it that there's life out in the universe. I looked it up. Betelgeuse is 724 light years away. So
Wow.
if it goes supernova and we can see it this year, then it means that it actually happened 724 years ago and the
Yep.
light just got to us. Yeah.
Yep.
But
Old
that's just
news.
like the right distance. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Cool.
That means when someone was looking at a different
Uh-huh.
supernova was happening, and they just didn't
Yep.
know about it. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Space is crazy. That's like a totally different area of science than what I studied, but it is wild. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, thanks, dude. This is
Yeah,
great. I
thank
love
you.
learning about all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that we were able to do the annual predictions after the heavy first part of it because that,
Yeah.
that was that was some heavy stuff. But I think that's okay. I think that's okay. Not every single episode needs to be like absolutely hilarious content or a hilarious topic, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
We still found some moments of levity in it. You know?
Yeah. No, I think that was fun.
Hey everybody, Ryan here from the Edit. And real quick before the end of the show, I just want to point out something that I forgot to mention is that the likelihood of Betelgeuse going supernova this year is pretty remote. which is why I picked that for my moonshot prediction. Astronomers and astrophysicists do seem to be at a consensus that that star is at its end stage of life, but that life cycle end stage is on an astronomical timescale. So I've seen estimates by actual astrophysicists for anywhere from tens of thousands of years up to 100,000 years, but also one notable estimate from 2023 that suggests it's as little as tens of years, so maybe even a century. And I don't have the technical expertise to judge between those different estimates, so as far as I can tell, that puts it anywhere between tomorrow and 100,000 years from now, which makes it a really good moonshot prediction if it comes true. It would really just make my year and really anybody else's who gets to witness it. So that's it for this time. Thanks for listening. If you would like to follow along with us, you can find Zach at ZH Jobe on all social media platforms. For me, you can find me at Myelin Channel, MYELIN Channel on YouTube or at evolio.org. This podcast is now hosted at Red Cloud. I got everything all set up there, so it's available on all major podcast platforms. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, you name it. You can subscribe via RSS feed if you don't use any of those apps or platforms. I personally like to use AntennaPod app for my podcast because it is free and open source, and I'm a big fan of that. If you'd like to support the work that I do, you can give a one-time contribution at coffee.com/Evolio. Links are in the description for everything. I'm still in the process of setting up a Patreon account, but that should be set up sometime in the next couple of weeks, so feel free to look for me there. All right, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Okay, bye. Zach, let me tell you a story.